the type of villains that get your blood boiling because you
just don't like 'em.
Yeah, exactly. Which means they're
Exactly.
written well because you don't like them.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast, with your hosts, Connor O'Neill and Matthew Hughes.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Nerdy Misfit Podcast.
Hello, happy Wednesday, and any day that you're listening to this or watching this that ends with Y.
Yep. So today is one of our ongoing series, our longest
Series,
and that is Anime of the Month.
Exactamundo.
This is actually the first anime of the month for the year of 2025.
2025.
That being said, we're going to start with a spoiler warning. We will be going in depth into the show, so if you have not seen the show, we recommend go watching the show and then coming back and watching this episode. With that being said, we also have a trigger warning. This trigger warning is for implied sexual abuse, gun violence, drug abuse, implied child pee, and child abuse. It's a heavy one.
So bear with us as we chat about it this episode. So, going into details, title of the anime, Banana Fish. We've already said that. It aired back in summer of 2018 to fall 2018. 24 episodes. Studio was MAPPA. This is worth noting that this is prior to MAPPA basically owning anything.
Yeah, pretty much getting the rights to all, because I don't know the exact dates, but I know one of the original founders of MAPPA Studio stepped down.
Okay.
And at that time, they were really only doing 1-2 anime, a month. Not a month. That's now. 1 or 2 a year, and they were pretty decent quality. And I think this is right around the time where they stepped down.
Okay.
And after they stepped down, MAPPA started
going up,
collecting IP like they were IPs like they were Pokemon for their. They ended up taking on Attack on Titan. We've seen them do a lot of the big ones that have come up, like Hell's Paradise, Chainsaw Man, Jujutsu Kaisen.
Huge names under the belt.
Yeah, they've been doing a lot of series and getting some hate for maybe
doing
not taking their time or pushing their animators too much. So this is prior to all that.
Yep. So genres,
but still, no, definitely a good studio, nonetheless, in terms of what they put out.
Always, so yeah, genre is action, adventure, drama, suspense.
I feel like mystery should probably belong in there.
Yeah,
I would say it's like a mystery drama.
Yeah,
this is what
not really adventure per se.
Well, adventure's part of it, but I feel like mystery drama is really covers a good chunk.
My anime is sitting at 8.46. I don't have how many users that's under.
I can bring it up quick.
Kind of work it up there.
So we got 389,622. Obviously, that could be. I don't know if that's based off of.
One
day we should really look into it.
We should really look in the specs of that, how that number comes to be.
Yeah, because I guess members is 903,000. So maybe that's the amount of people that have it on their plan to watch in combination of on hold, plan to watch.
Maybe.
And then users is how many people have scored it out of those 903,000?
Maybe. Well, we'll check that out. Hopefully,
this is only the 13th episode.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll look into it.
Whatever. The manga of Banana Fish was written in 1985 by Akimi Yoshida.
Yep.
Hopefully I pronounced that right. And I'll give you guys a mini summarization of this anime, which in my opinion, this synopsis really doesn't do it justice. But
you don't want it to give away.
But I also want to give out too much. But yeah. Okay, so Aslan Jade Cullen Reese, known as Ash Lynx, was a runaway picked off the streets of New York City and raised by the infamous godfather of the mafia, Dino Calzine. Now 17 years old and the boss of his own gang, Ash begins investigating the mysterious banana fish, the same 2 words his older brother Griffin had muttered since his return from the Iraq War. However, his inquiries have hindered when Dino sends his men after Ash at an underground bar he uses as a hideout. At the bar, Skip, Ash's friend, introduces him to Shunichi Ibe and his assistant EJ? Eji? Yeah, I don't know why I said Okumaru, who are Japanese photographers reporting on American street gangs. However, their conversation is interrupted when Shorter Wong, one of Ash's allies, calls to warn him about Dino. Soon, Dino's men storm the bar. Ensuing chaos kidnaps Skip and EJ. Now, Ash must find a way to rescue them and continue his investigation into Banana Fish. But what will his history with the Mafia prevent him from succeeding?
So one interesting note is, like we mentioned, the so the manga for this is written in 1985. So I
Yeah.
think originally the war is Vietnam that Ash's brother comes back from.
Yeah, but they've updated
And
it slightly.
they've updated a few different things to be more modernized, considering
Mhm.
this came out in 2018. That being one of the changes. We haven't read the manga, so we don't know all
Yeah,
the
we don't
changes,
know.
and
Yeah.
we didn't go through that. But this is solely based off the anime.
Mhm.
But I guess we'll jump in.
Yeah, initial
So
thoughts, Connor.
initial thoughts. One is another show that takes completely place in the USA.
Yep.
As opposed to either Japan or obviously, like a lot of works, just fictional places.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always cool to see a story take place in a country outside of Japan, but within our world,
Yeah.
in our society. Especially, obviously, we are Canadian or not American, but similarities.
Mhm.
Western society in general. So it's always cool to see a Japanese writer's perspective of what they think the US is like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we followed the followed organized crime, similar to 91 Days, where we followed a mafia-esque gang
Yeah.
kind of going on, but more 91 Days is focused on a revenge story. And although there's definitely elements of potential revenge-esque story within this, it is not the main meat and potatoes. I would say the main meat and potatoes of this is both the mystery element of it and the duality of two characters, or
Yeah.
the mirroring of two characters, if you will.
Mhm.
So as we jump in, we meet Ash, who basically has his own gang, but also has the respect of multiple gangs within New York.
Yeah.
And he's only 17 years old, young, and he's already has this respect of all these other gang leaders. And basically he's looked up to as like this person who's able to kind of keep the peace. With
Yeah.
Ash, they're able to keep the peace. So you can tell that he's very important. One thing at the start, you kind of see that Ash, he comes off as this character that wants to avoid killing. Like, he has no problem hurting people, kind of like, Batman-esque. Like, he's
Yeah.
like, has no problem hurting people, but he's not really killing anyone. Which really changes as we get through the series, because then he just goes full tilt, can't be stopped.
It's interesting because throughout the story you see a couple different characters develop in ways that their character wouldn't traditionally.
Or I guess Ash, who devolves.
Yeah.
Because maybe when we first meet him, we see him at this state where he's like, I'm not killing unless I have to.
Yeah. By the end of that is very different. But
And
you can also make the argument
maybe he has to.
that he
the whole
has
time.
to based on things, right?
I felt like the show kind of gave a very Fox and the Hound vibe,
Mm-hmm.
where we have two people from different worlds that come together and create an unlikely friendship. I believe that's called ambivalence.
Mhm.
And yeah, so each character kind of fills a void that other character kind of needs at this moment, and that's what kind of helps blossom this friendship. This anime often is labeled as a BL or a yaoi, and although there definitely is some elements for BLs, I think the author leaves the relationship between our two main characters a bit ambiguous on purpose. And something I like about that, where it's not concrete, is that someone could enjoy it, the BL elements, and just ship them together because it's
Yeah.
not said either way. But you can also just have them be these very unlikely people that become close friends really quick, and just it clicks, and there's no wrong answer to the way you're interpreting that relationship. You just know that either way, they're important to each other, which I kind of like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I wouldn't really call it a BL personally, but I can see, there's elements. And yeah, like I said, these two could be in love, or they could just be the most unlikely of close friends, and they just needed one each other at the time that this story happens.
Yep.
What about you, Matt? What did you take from it initially?
Initially thoughts, I mean, I feel like the description of the anime on My Anime List doesn't really do it justice because it doesn't prepare you for the wild ride of...
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like the description really only explains, like, the actual genuine setup of the first episode, almost, before it goes down.
But that's often the case.
That is often the case, for sure.
Yeah.
The show is definitely one of the more serious anime I've watched.
I feel like it was the second
Um,
episode where you were already messaging me and you're
Yeah.
like, what are we watching?
Yeah, I was like, The show did take me a little bit to get through, not because it was boring in any way. It's just the subject matter is very heavy throughout the show, and there are parts
It's
where it
not as
doesn't
easy to binge through.
Yeah, it doesn't shy away from certain aspects of what we discussed in the trigger warning, but
And it takes them seriously.
it does. It doesn't
it
shy. It doesn't be like that.
Takes them seriously, doesn't make any jokes around them.
Mm-hmm.
It's also not there as just like a tool to feel bad. It's used appropriately, I think, in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
makes sense for some of the characters.
Yeah, and their reasoning behind what they're doing.
Yeah.
I didn't put this in the note, but you mentioned it is the mirroring of characters. I talk about this a little bit more in character design, but the fact that Arthur and Ash had similar designs
Yeah.
was made it so parallel to the point that they're so different because it shows what Ash could have become.
One wants to do everything in their power to get away from Dino, and one wants to just be the right hand.
Exactly. And I think that is really well done. And then also when you have your two main characters that are literally polar opposites coming from two different points of the world, looking drastically different.
Not just drastically different or from the world, just we have one character who's very timid, scared,
They're shy.
shy,
Introverted, then you're throwing it with an extrovert.
yeah,
to the
introverted,
extreme.
just no, I guess no bravery.
Yeah.
And then the complete opposite with someone who has all of this swagger, if you will, and just all the confidence in the world, even though under the surface we know that there's a lot going on,
Yeah.
but on the outside is willing to do anything that they need to do to achieve what they want. And that's both of those sides start to rub off on the other, right? We see one character become a lot more emotional or feel like they can be emotional with this character. And we have another character who feels like they can start being more brave while they're around.
Yeah, you can, in a way, look at, like, there's some symbology you can go in there where they together almost represent, like, the yin-yang, where there's always a little bit of good in someone and bad versus that. And you can even use the parallel of their hair color, where one has black hair color and one has a super light
Blonde
hair color, of showing that duality, because as innocent as the one character is, you see him by the end of it, he's guns, like, he's there and he's prepared to do what he has
he's
to
just
do.
another gang member at that point.
He goes down to, but at the same time, it's good character development in a way because he goes down to Ash's level to understand him more. Meanwhile, Ash, in a way, goes up to his level to understand, to compensate, and to be a better person.
Well, and just to reach into his emotions and be vulnerable to someone.
Exactly.
Going into the art style and character design, I felt like the art style was very welcoming. Character designs for taking place in the real world, I thought there were a lot of really good, unique character designs.
Yep.
We got, especially since we have a whole bunch of different races as well,
Yeah.
right? We have the Chinese, we have African American, we have just white people. It was just a really good mix, and everyone's kind of unique in their own way. Like, you can pick out every character as you're going, which was one. It's nice to obviously differentiate people,
Yeah.
but also it's just it's nice that it's just not bland.
Yeah, it's not the same cookie cutter. Even the background characters, like each
Yeah.
individual background character had
Everyone
different
kind of
look
has
to
their own
them.
style too. Like, you look at Kane, who he's always wearing his glasses, the sunglasses.
even Shorter Wong. Like
Shorter
he had a
Wong had
unique-
his own style. Yep. So
Even like the
liked
characters
it.
that didn't weren't in the gangs. Like even Max had a very particular style. Like it was all
yeah, Blanca.
Blanca as well.
Yeah. So I would say it was pretty good, solid
Yeah.
character design. Animation.
It's
It is by
Mappa.
Mappa. It was solid, very smooth, fluid.
Nothing was painful to watch at all.
No, like, and the
Like,
action
it
scenes
was-
were good fight choreography. I
Yep.
also really like the attention to detail, considering it's not a full-fledged action anime, but to see the detail and seeing like a reload of the magazine or the clip
Yeah.
coming out and then being reloaded, like, sometimes you just you don't see that, or people just never reload.
Yeah, there's that. Or even this is a weird one, but like also the amount of constant blood. Like you got hit and then the blood just stops a lot of the time in animation. You're like, oh
Yeah.
cool, his shirt is
People
now
are
wet.
bleeding.
But like
Yeah.
actively the
Dying.
blood continues.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Uh,
Music, To me, the music was great. I thought the music was put in proper spots with different genres.
Oh, I thought the music was incredible. It almost helped really amplify the emotional response you were having to the moments, because
Yeah.
this show's like a yo-yo when it comes to, like, sometimes you're happy and it's like feel good and there's the song for that. Sometimes there's the moments of true despair.
Yep.
And it's right there.
Even
There's
the
also-
outro too, like the way they did that with the credits
it's
and
like very
actually
somber too.
finishing the episode was
I also
Brilliant.
really liked the whenever there was like a more actiony paced scene, we had the classic opening at the
Yeah.
last episode during like the final battle.
such a
which was epic.
great. Oh, I love when freaking animes do that.
It gets
really
like your
bumps me
your
up.
hair stand up
Yeah.
and you get the goosebumps and you're like, oh yeah,
Tokyo Ghoul, like that is
Yep.
the one I always think about because I'm like, oof.
that's an epic one.
Yeah. I think the second, like both openings were great, but I really enjoyed opening number 2.
I really
thought
enjoyed
that
opening
was-
number 1
Oh.
because
So-
opening number 1's by Survive Said the Prophet, who's
Okay.
actually a band that I listen to regularly outside of
Oh, I didn't know
anime and shows. That's they also did the have done 2 openings for Vinland Saga. They
Okay.
did the first opening of season 1, and I believe they do the first opening or the opening of season the second opening of season 2.
that. Oh, cool. I didn't know that.
But yeah, they're really good. They were also at Anime North, which is one of the biggest anime convention in
Which
Canada.
we'll try and go to this year.
But the one year I went, they were there, and we didn't get to see them, but they were there.
They were there. We were like in this. We were basically there, you know.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, they're I really like their music, so I would say they did a really good job.
I'll jump into plot and characters. I think you have a little bit more than me for that. So, I think the first 13 or so episodes felt more together as a story compared to the second half. Because I felt like the first part was like Arthur felt like your core antagonist, almost like.
But that wasn't even important relative to the story. In my opinion, the first 13 episodes are the story of what is Banana Fish.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean,
It's the mystery. It's
yeah.
solving what Banana Fish is, and the remainder is how things are going with how they progress. Like, what are the goals change because now they know what Banana Fish is. It's like exposing it, and then the drama that goes along with how many more people start learning of what Banana Fish is and how it's getting used, et cetera, et cetera. So I feel like the first half is more mystery, and then the second half is more dealing with all the outcomes and all the power struggles that come with such a powerful drug. And I guess we should say that in this case, Banana Fish is basically a mind controlling drug.
Yeah. Takes away your consciousness basically to replace it, and then
The people who
mind.
are giving it to you can just tell you what to do and you do it.
yeah,
And
be terrifying.
but yeah, let's continue.
Yeah. I did feel like after that though, like once we find out kind of what you said, like after we find out what Banana Fish is, and there's the second half with the struggle of trying to stop it from getting out, etc. Right? It was, for me, it felt weird because it like kind of bounced between a few different people, where like Blanca shows up and Blanca's on this side, and then he's on this side, and then he's to this side, and then the last 4 episodes introduces like Fox, who kind of just, in my opinion, felt a little out of place. Like, in a way, I understand that he comes from like the government and like being ex-military and stuff.
From the French government.
Yeah,
He was just like whatever.
but he just felt like an
a
extra
gun for
like
hire.
yeah.
Him, I didn't care for as much. Blanca was, I think he was a very
He was an interesting character.
He was a very complex character, I
Yeah.
think, which is why
I would have loved to get a
his-
little bit more info on him, but also I like
his-
the mystery behind him.
his bouncing back and forth was more so, in my opinion, focused on caring about Ash.
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
it was always for Ash's best interest than it was ever like him truly bouncing around. Like, he kind of always had
like at
one
the
allegiance.
hotel and the dinner. Yeah.
Yeah, he always had kind of like, okay, I'm gonna do this for the boss, because obviously, like, I'm sure he's done a lot for him in his
Mhm.
life. And then he kind of, I think he just wanted to see how Ash was doing. That's why he took that initial job on, because he was interested.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And then the decision to join Lee, he basically outsmarted Lee, right? Like, he was like, "Oh, I'll be your bodyguard, but only if you're in trouble."
Yeah, it felt like a very like genie-esque agreement.
Yes,
like,
exactly. Like, "Oh yeah, I'll be your bodyguard,
Bodyguard.
but literally exclusively. I'm not going to go out and just kill people for
yeah,
you."
yeah, I'm just gonna save you, and that's it.
So, and he clearly knew what he was doing because
classic genie
it was
move.
yeah, it was having Ash's best interest in his mind, and then obviously he helps Ash, so that one was the most likely. I found that Lee's character took a really weird. I liked him at the beginning, and like his motives made sense.
Yeah, progressively through the story though, I just
but as he
liked him less and less.
I was really struggling to understand the like pit of despair he kind of like started falling into after he got his revenge. Like I understand he had no purpose in life almost. Like that's why he started falling. But they just did a really weird way of telling that I feel like could have been a bit better to understand why he started to be a lot more whiny. For lack of a better term.
No, exactly though. Yeah, I would agree with that.
So I didn't care for his character as much. I also understand he was jealous of Edgy. And it was, I don't know. I didn't really care for that type of stuff.
That kind of. I don't want to say it felt forced, but it felt so irrelevant in the grand scheme of everything else that was happening.
And it was like Ash doesn't like you, and you don't like Ash. So what's the point of ruining Ash just so someone else is like you? I don't really understand.
Yeah, I don't know what his outcome was.
Because like, what was the end goal there?
Exactly. Yeah.
That's I guess that was the biggest issue. What was his end goal?
Yeah, he felt irrelevant or whatever. For characters, I just have that like obviously great story, great characters. For me, I for some reason really enjoyed Max's like
Max was a
story.
good character.
I enjoyed that with like even just showing up. He's like, "Oh, I know where to go," and it's like his ex-wife, and just walks in. It's automatic like slap to the face or whatever. Yeah. You messaged me today about who Ash's design is based off of, but when I was going through some information about this, his design is based off of Harrison Ford, which is great because of how many Indiana Jones references he said throughout the anime, which I thought was fun. But yeah, jump to you for plot and characters.
Yeah, so basically had down that a few characters have a real iceberg effect going on, especially our main character, Ash. From the surface level, he's young, a bit moody, gang leader, smart, effective, good fighter with a very accurate shot. Under the surface, however, is a life of all sorts of abuse, almost like he has lived multiple lifetimes of pain and sadness already.
Yep.
We see him be a badass or use his body to get what he wants, which happens a lot. But after, you can see him as delicate as a leaf.
Yeah.
Someone touches him on the shoulder or just in the wrong spot, and he'll react aggressively. And he kind of goes back to that scared, abused kid.
Yeah, we definitely saw it a few times where he just got out after being rescued again from like the military guys. And
that one was a big obvious one.
That was a big one, yeah, because I think it was one of the ones from Harlem. He like touches his shoulder to be like, "You okay?" And like you see him like flinch and ready to just like smack him, punch him, etc.
And that's like, where Edgy comes in, and he's able to kind of settle him down. And like Ash just can feel vulnerable and almost like he can vent his true feelings or be his true self with him, which is obviously the importance of Edgy as a character within the series. So I said we also see similar things with Yut Lung Li and Blanco as we get their backstories as well. Like on the surface level, we just see like a very good assassin, and the other one we also see a younger brother of a crime family who has his role to play.
Yeah.
And then we learn about what happened to his mom, and you're like, okay, so you learn the complexity of his relationship with his brothers and what his true motives are. Blanca, you never really get his motives, but you understand
he has a connection to Ash of some sort,
and you understand why he left. Because he was Spetsnaz, so you understand why he left. Especially when you learn about his wife is the person who helped teach him how to love, etc. Personally, my favorite character was Shorter.
Rest in peace.
Until he died.
Such an insane.
That was
death.
What a chain of events that happened there.
Yeah.
Eh?
That was. I was very curious.
Brutal.
I did not know exactly what Ash was gonna do. Like, obviously, you would assume, but at that point in the story, like, I mean, Griffin was killed like a few episodes ago, and you're like, okay, maybe the author is not afraid to like.
And Ash could be like let off the rails, and
exactly.
Yeah. That was a tough death, big death, because it also starts the cracks with the Chinese relationship, which obviously leads to a lot of the
inter-gang activity.
Well, like, betrayals and different motives, because you have people that hate or want to kill Ash. Then you have some members who are like, oh, like he had to have his reasons, blah blah blah. But yeah, through the mystery, we're introduced to the antagonist, which is Edgy, Japanese college student, ex-athlete. I'm putting in quotations here because he could potentially go back and not be scared to fail again.
Yeah.
And could start
His introduction was fun in that regard.
to be a pole vaulter again, who feels like he had a loss of purpose of himself. And so he joins a photojournalist to go to America, and they are going to actually photograph Ash's gang, which is how this whole chain of events ends up beginning. And from that point on, they just apparently have very good chemistry, like right from the get-go. And like I mentioned before, Reggie is timid, kind, coward. But the more he hangs around Ash, the more brave he becomes, the more risks he takes, which you could argue when he goes back to Japan. Hopefully that bravery that he learned from Ash, he can put into his real life in Japan. And vice versa. Ash spends more time with Edgy, the more vulnerable he becomes, and we learned that there's a lot going on with Ash, so it's a big deal for him because he pretty much walls up all the time.
Yeah.
I said we're also introduced to a few different antagonists, some that oppose Ash within his own gang, and our big bad, which is Dino Golzine, who's like the crime family leader of the mafia, who has groomed Ash since he was a kid, using him in child P, using him as a male prostitute, and his own personal plaything, amongst other things. We also learned that he has a special liking towards Ash and actually ends up wanting Ash to take his place as the head of the family, which is later in the story, which is part of the reason, because this is one of my negatives, is oftentimes we see kill Ash. Don't kill Ash. Leave him to me. I'm going to kill him. I'm going to choke him out with my own hands, blah, blah. Never ends up happening. Lots of opportunities to kill Ash. Tons of them. And obviously this at least makes it less bad that they never kill him. It's because he wants him to be the next, like he adopts him officially and wants him to become the next leader of the crime family. So at least you can understand why he never killed Ash. But I feel like with the amount of times they've captured Ash and the amount of times they had the opportunity to kill him, it probably was just worth it to kill him.
At that point, yeah.
I put down that also the story has tons of unique twists, fights, gunfights. It showed a very scary idea of a tool that can be used to corrupt massive leaders within the United States government as well as the world. Showed how political officials can use their position to do horrible stuff and get away with it, but as well as people behind the scenes that potentially are in crime can blackmail these officials to do what they want and get their own agenda moved forward, which is scary because I'm sure there's probably cases like that going on, which is a scary thought, but very relatable to the real world in all honesty.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be necessarily crime per se. It could just be something as simple as billionaires funding their own agendas to get people to be the president, for example, and stuff like that. So it's very relatable to the real world. Also, I put a note here that the manga confirmation in Banana Fish is that Ash is explicitly shown to be dead.
Cool.
In the anime, it's a little bit more ambiguous of isn't he or is he?
I wanted that. I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Because it felt very like, I didn't expect it to end that way.
Oh, I know. It's like a jab to the heart.
So I was like, okay, cool. He's got the ticket to go to Japan eventually, whatever if he wants to.
And he let his guard down.
And then he let his guard down. And then it's just like, boom.
Yeah.
And then he goes to the library, which is like poetic justice in a way. And then he reads the letter.
Well, that's like his happy place, if you will.
Exactly.
Like that's where
he's able to concentrate, to think about things.
And just,
you know.
he likes, that's the place he likes.
Then yeah, just for it to end with the like librarian being like, oh, must
yeah,
be
I don't
a
know
good
if
dream.
he was dead.
And I'm like,
come on.
You can actively, sir, ma'am, he's bleeding from his shirt. His head's down.
And yeah, it's part of what makes the story tragic. It's he would have gone to Japan and changed and
would have got that happily ever after.
And changed his life. He doesn't need the life. He could leave that life of violence and killing behind him and be with someone that he really cares about.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I got. I mean, there's obviously a lot more
lot more to
going on
cover
in the
for
plot,
sure.
and a lot of characters that I've left out, but I feel like I've got a good chunk there.
That's fair. We'll do positives and negatives and then jump over to, positives. I mean, the emotions of the story kept me invested and curious on what was going to happen next. I mean, after Griffin's death especially, I was like, oh, cool. And then Sharon Wong's death, I was like, oh, wow, we're...
The handling of a lot of the dark parts was good too,
Yeah.
because it was not done in a distasteful way, but it also was done in a way that that it's horrible, because it will use the characters' reactions, other characters' reactions to things, or it'll skip to Ash on the ground all beat to shit, stuff like that, and you're just like, okay,
like, oh, wow.
You get the vibe.
Yeah,
but it was done in a good way.
I agree with that.
And it was never like made a joke of. It's never really funny. I think there's a few times where Ash is flirting, which can come off as a little bit more on the funny, playful side.
Yeah.
But you also learn, as you learn more about Ash, that that's just one of the tools he's gathered that he knows works for him and that he can do to get what he wants.
Which is so...
Yeah, when you meet Ash's dad, I was like...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was a hard one.
I was like, oh, that's where we're... this is the story we're going for, eh? This explains it.
Obviously, positives also, like we mentioned. Good animation.
Good animation. The fight scenes were well done.
Character design, character development.
Can't deny that.
Just characters in general, just great.
I'm pulling it up right now. That's why my camera's all shaky. Is around like episode 6. I was looking at the names of the episodes because I was like, oh, My Lost City. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's a novel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, oh, interesting. And I kept watching, and then a couple episodes later, I think I got The Beautiful and the Damned, and I was like, that's also a novel. So then I went back, and every single episode is named after a book or novella, mostly Fitzgerald and Hemingway, which kind of makes sense based on the time period of when the manga and stuff came out. But it's interesting because obviously there's reference to what Banana Fish is named after, which is a short story.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed that like subtle Easter egg. Like, again, like you wouldn't catch it.
Nope.
Obviously, maybe when the last episode would be like, oh, the last episode's called Catcher in the Rye. Oh, yeah, that's a book. But a lot of the other ones are just like niche novellas, some of Ernest Hemingway's earliest works, Fitzgerald's earlier works too. So I thought that was a fun little Easter egg positive. Negatives, we kind of touched on this, but like just Ash getting kidnapped every couple episodes and then gets away and then gets caught again. And there were so many opportunities just to kill him. I know that's not the point of the story
It's
overall.
not the point of the story, but it was a bit annoying to see
felt
how
repetitive in
it was
a way.
very often the issue that was stopping our group of heroes, if you will, from progressing was always Ash is taken.
Yeah.
Okay,
or someone's taking and Ash is like, I'll go get kidnapped instead. And then he gets saved.
There's a lot of saving Private Ash, and it was a bit overused and tiresome. I can agree with that.
It doesn't take away from the story, but it definitely felt
it just felt
repetitive.
like it happened a lot.
Yeah, more than it should have.
But also, I guess, in the grand scheme of things, it is like Gang. Like, what else are they gonna do?
You're right.
But yeah, it happened a lot.
Yeah.
But overall, I would say the anime keeps you invested. Great characters, a fun mystery at the start that kind of keeps you on the edge of your seat and wanting to see it get solved. Has decent villains, like the type of villains that get your blood boiling because you don't
like them.
Yeah, exactly. Which means they're written well because you don't like them. And really makes you motivated to like want to see the good guys win. It handles dark subject matter, I would say, pretty well.
Relatively well, yeah.
It handles it by not, like I said, doesn't have it be the main focus, but it uses other characters to show how horrible these things are by either the reactions or skipping to like how the characters, like Ash, like I said, is already beaten up. Mm-hmm. But also the show does have some lighthearted moments that help brighten the show up from this darker area,
Oddly
which is
enough,
good.
Max and Jessica's relationship.
Yeah, it's definitely one of them. Even just a lot of the scenes with Max are great in general, but also some of the more cute scenes with Edgy, where they're just like having meals or making food for one another.
I don't know, anytime
like,
Ash
like
called Max dad, I was like, this is a good scene.
yeah, that was fun.
That's what I think was good poeticness, like for a closure of Max's character at the end, is when he gets the email and he's like, good job, Dad.
Yeah.
I was like, that's good.
But yeah, it was definitely an enjoyable show, although hard at times, but it did also have moments that made you smile.
I agree. And before we give our final thoughts and recommendations, we are going to jump over to Troy from Nerdy Misfit Gaming for him to give his opinion on this month's Banana Fish.
What the hell was that? I don't know what I was expecting. But it definitely was not that. Banana Fish. Where do we start? As me coming from as a casual anime watcher, I don't think I've ever started watching anything that starts off being that kind of dark. The first 4 or 5 episodes were pretty heavy. I am glad as the show went on, it wasn't like a huge like main focus. They still touched on it, but it was I'm just glad they focused definitely a lot more on the mystery side of things compared to how it seemed to start. So this anime starts with a dying man basically gives this unknown vial to a teenager his name is Ash. And he ends up being a street gang leader. And yes, at the young age, I believe 17. He's in his teenage years and he's already a street gang leader. So this goes through how he figures out what's in the vial and basically what's it gonna do. And as he learns more about the vial, it ends up bringing him back to someone from his past who is basically the kingpin of grooming children and having children prostitutes, pretty much. And that whatever this vial, basically can change the whole world. So Ash, as he goes on this adventure, while still being this gang leader, he ends up crossing paths with a journalist named Edgy. Hopefully, I'm saying these right. They kind of end up becoming friends, and kind of starts baffling a bunch of people, because the way I say it that way is because even though Ash is only this young teenager, he as you watch in the anime, he ends up living up to like this hard ass reputation, and like no one's ever been like him before, like this complete hard ass who is like basically a sharpshooter with a pistol, and just you don't piss him off basically, especially in that whole line of work. But for some reason, when he's around Edgy, he's different. You see a little bit more of at least for a couple seconds, like that's not right away, but he ends up kind of opening up a little bit, and he seems more relaxed, and that's not the type of person Ash is. I believe they were trying to really portray Ash trying to experience a true friendship, maybe even kind of what his first feelings are on love, not necessarily for like a partner, but just as like friendly love in general. Because as you learn through the anime, he's had a real rough past, and that's like an understatement. So you end up kind of following that kind of relationship kind of through and through. So overall, I would say give Banana Fish, I would say 7 out of 10. It may not have been completely my cup of tea. I like the action part of it, but some of the mystery parts were cool, but the heavy stuff for me was just a little too much for my personal likings. But it did always kind of leave you wanting to, find more like what direction things are going, what little small plot twists here and there were kind of popping up, and really trying to figure out what the next step was. I would say the art style was good. It was solid. Same thing with the sounds. It was solid. Nothing amazing, but it was fine. Would I recommend this? If those heavier topics like child prostitution and the grooming and stuff isn't like not gonna like you can get around that, I would say yes. It as a mystery, it's a solid mystery kind of anime with lots of action. But if you can't get yourself around that, if that's gonna be too much for you, then maybe this is skip for you. But if you can wrap your head around like past that, I'd say it's a solid anime.
Thanks for that, Troy. Yeah, so make sure to check out Nerdy Misfit Gaming. Troy streams every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Right now, he's doing the Miles Morales DLC for the Spider-Man, as we are approaching the PC release of Spider-Man 2, which he will also be streaming every Tuesday. Also, Eddie will be on every now and then on the gaming channel, so make sure to check him out as well when he posts.
Exactly.
Definitely a different vibe.
Yes, very different, which is always fun to see how they go.
But yeah, final thoughts and is it a recommendation from you, Matt?
If you want something different that deals with hard topics in anime, then give it a try. I think this is a good anime to show the range of what anime is out of your traditional
That is
shonen.
a fantastic point. It shows that
not
anime
all
can
anime
be
is
a very complex story.
exactly.
And like you said, if you're coming from just shonen, for example, like
it just shows you the complexity of what anime is capable of doing.
Yeah,
that you don't really see in like mainstream. Like this is nothing like
it's not
Demon
all just
Slayer, JJK,
hardcore fighting, characters yelling, titties, and
tentacles.
Yeah,
there's
call.
in fact rarely any of that.
So
yeah, I don't think this anime is obviously for everyone.
No.
Again, fair warning, like it is some mature subject matter, but I think they handle it really well, and I would recommend it to someone who's wanting to see something different in anime.
Yeah. Similarly, I said I would 100% recommend. It is filled with drama, mystery, love, friendship, hardship, breaking out of your shell, and so much more. I do think that if you have a history or are triggered by certain things, like we mentioned in the trigger warning, then obviously it's not for you. However, if those things don't off-put you and you are wanting a more mature story, I think it might be one of the best out there. And I would give it a 9 out of 10.
9 out of 10. I wanted to give it like an 8.5-ish.
I thought about 8.5, and then as I was writing the points for this and how the characters are and just the two characters, and I was like, oh, like this is like a very effed up version of Fox and the Hound. I was all like, man, like it's a really good story.
I thought it was great.
And it's even crazier to think that it never got an anime adaptation before when it was written in the 80s, and we're getting one now, and they obviously made it more relatable to how society is now. It was very, very well done.
But it's also good because it's funny because you're able to actually say like, hey, you never know if your character, like your manga that you've read, is going to get an anime adaptation, because there was obviously other big ones that people are like, it's never going to get an anime adaptation, so on and so forth. So this just goes to show you that it can.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And you guys should definitely let us know if you ended up watching it. I mean, if you're here, you definitely did watch it. What do you guys think? And also let us know if you have any recommendations for 2025 that we should do for Anime of the Month.
Yeah,
we do have a Discord. It's in the description down below, and there's a spot for Anime of the Month.
Exactly. And speaking of Anime of the Month, we're going to jump into chat briefly about our February Anime of the Month. Connor picked out this one. This one is called Another.
Yeah, so this is actually a very popular show. It might be one of the most popular, like it's in like the million category for members, I'm pretty sure. So
okay,
it's definitely a show that a lot of people probably have seen. So that's why we picked it. It's a little bit more on the mainstream side of things. And
It is spooky
it
from
could
what
be.
from my understanding.
Yeah. If you want to give her a read and
yeah.
a little bit of a
One
quickie view.
1.7 million members.
Yeah. So
Ranked 59 on popularity.
there you go.
Okay, so we are looking at anime called Another, airing back in winter 2012. 12 episodes. Studio is PA Works. On top of my head, pretty sure they did Angel Beads. I don't know why that's the one I think of, but
Yep, that's one of them.
that's the big one.
Angel
Obviously,
Beats
there's other big
is
ones,
a great show.
But
Yeah, they've done a couple shows I've seen. I mean, Skip to Loafer is one of them. A relatively decent sized show that I think a lot of people has seen in the past few years. I did watch. I think it was called something Color, World in Color or something, which
Wall in the
was
Sea
a anime
sounds
original.
familiar.
But yeah, they've done a good chunk.
Okay. So episode PA Works. The genre is horror and mystery. The My Anime List score is sitting at a 7.47, which is very intrigued for me because of how many people have watched it. I think it's going to be between a 7 and 8. But the synopsis, you're looking at in class 3-3 of Yoriyama North Junior High, transfer student Kuchi Sakibara makes his return after taking a sick leave for the first month of school. Among his new classmates, he is explicitly drawn towards Mei Misaki, a reserved girl with an eye patch whom he met in the hospital during his absence. But none of his classmates acknowledged her existence. They warned him not to acquaint himself with things that do not exist. Against their words of caution, Kuchi befriends Mei, soon learning of the sinister truth behind his friend's apprehension. The ominous rumors revolve around a former student of the class 3-3. However, no one will share the full details of the grim event with Kochi. Engrossed in the curse that plagues his class, Kochi sets out to discover its connection to his new friend. As a series of tragedies arise around them, it is now up to Kochi, Mei, and their classmates to unravel the eerie mystery, but doing so will come at a hefty price. Now, this is also, it's not based off a manga. It's based off a mystery horror novel by Yukito Ayasuji, published on October 29th, 2009. So there's that. It is available on Crunchyroll. So if you are trying to figure out where to watch it and you have Crunchyroll, that's the way to go.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know. Yeah, it's interesting because on Crunchyroll, literally the whole synopsis on Crunchyroll is the school that held a secret that no one must speak of. Spring 1998.
There you go.
That's it. And I'm like, oh, all right then.
But yeah, so it's a shorter one, 12 episodes. Probably be a lot more bingeable than our past one. But yeah, like we said, if you guys want to join us, we do have a Discord. You can join below, or you can drop a comment down below and suggest an anime of the month that you want us to check out. Maybe it's one of your favorites, and we'll see if we can give it a try.
Heck. Yeah, but until then, thanks again for watching. Thanks again for listening.
And don't forget to subscribe and like.
Exactly. And we'll see you guys next week.
Till then.
Bye.
Bye.
TNMP, the Nerdy Misfit Podcast. Don't forget to join the island by dropping a follow. Thank you, and see you next week.